It's hard to understand the way that you went out. I bet you're living with a little hint of doubt. Maybe next time when you go to show your hand, you won't cut and run, you'll finally make a stand. 'Cause I know it's true, I'm finally getting to you. We're not through. Yeah, I know it's true, I'm finally getting to you. Existential questions always get you down. All you want to know is are we lost or found? Is there something that you feel you need to chase? I bet you thought you put me in my place. 'Cause I know it's true, I'm finally getting to you. We're not through. I know it's true, I'm finally getting to you. Yeah, I know it's true, I'm finally getting to you. We're not through. Yeah, I know it's true, I'm finally getting to you. You can run, you can hide, but inside, I'm finally getting to you. Yes, it's true. I still love you, but I am getting to you.
Stand by to initiate release sequencer. On my mark.
We're on express elevator to hell. Going down.
2, 1. Mark.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. How's that? There we go. Welcome back to the Resupply with me, guy next door.
Me, DK.
And me, Van, whose microphone is actually working.
Bringing you... nah, just jokes. Bringing you your double tap of all things Space Marines and Laser Force. Hello, gentlemen. Nice to see you. How the hell are you?
Yeah, you know, living in America is fun these days.
What an awful, awful place. Hi, chat. Nice to see you guys. Apologies for the very
Normal technical problems we always have.
say the opposite way. We never have tech issues here, so apologies for that.
Although to be fair, we've had less tech issues recently. So you know, this was just us doing a throwback to the good old days of constant tech issues.
Did it on purpose. Yeah, that's right.
We can't have you thinking that we're too competent.
Yeah, that would be crazy. So I did a stream earlier in the week, or at least tried to do a stream earlier in the week. I didn't have tech problems, but very much had to cut the stream short because I got very sick.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. I was like, boys, can you just hold it down for a minute? And then I went and puked my guts out. So yay for Steve. We're on a roll, 2 for 2.
Good job.
Yep.
I also puked last week. It was terrible.
Did you?
Yeah.
Welcome to Puke Gate.
Yeah, just as part of the general sickness, whatever, that I got after Syracuse that I'm still in the very tail end of. But I think I had too much postnasal drip, and so it just overflowed my stomach, and it was terrible. I really hate. I really hate vomiting, so it's like I try to keep it to like every 3 years at most.
No, fuck it. What the fuck are we doing here? On a list of bullshit topics that we could ever be. Why this one?
So
to be fair, I like talking about bodily functions a lot more than I like talking about anything that happens at Verizon. if we're gonna get noted here.
Next plays good point. I've got
sure.
This rash.
I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you.
Just hit it with that drive by right there.
Yeah, one of my toes has gone very purple. Love it. Let's move on, shall we?
This is just going to be one of these days. Okay.
Boys.
Good to know.
Boys, I didn't get to play lasers this week, unfortunately, because
that sucks.
Well, sort of. I prioritized what my body could and couldn't do. I busy only tuning for the vomit updates. I got to play a bunch of disc golf last week. I competed in the New Zealand Open.
And how'd that go?
Didn't come last. Goal achieved. Ba-boom. But more importantly...
It's good to have goals.
It is good to have goals. More importantly, I used my boyish charms to become best friends with a bunch of famous disc golfers. So I can only do this show for so much longer before I'm moving up in the world. Sorry, boys.
I get it. We all knew that you were going to outgrow us at some point, so I'm not surprised, frankly.
I feel that's a fair joke.
I mean, it's 20 years. It's going to happen eventually.
Yeah. It's just odd.
Oh my God, we've been doing this podcast for 20 years.
It feels like it. No, it was a bunch of fun. I got to meet a lot of very good disc golfers, and we knew Steve. It's not that I don't like you; it's just that I'm better than you. Is what that is. No, I got to play with some very good disc golfers. I used my spy glasses to film the most epic thing I've done so far with a frisbee. If you haven't seen it, go and check out my Facebook because it's friggin' sweet. Ahoy, Lucy. How the hell are you? I didn't think about you at all.
Crap.
Well, that was out of left field.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I didn't realize we still had that one active.
Yeah.
Speaking of famous disc golfers, thanks for derailing the program, Disco Stew.
Exactly, Disco Stew. I've been thinking about the next Laser Force Disc Golf Association, the Gold Invitational, I want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very excited, and actually, I made progress this week with the local council here. So when we next have our competition here, hopefully the park that I designed will be open. So we'll see. We'll see how we get on.
Are we penciling that in for what, 2028?
Yeah. Next time we host. But yeah, cool stuff's happening. But let's talk about you guys. What have you guys been up to? How's the body? Well, how's your body, DK, after playing Qs?
That part was fine if I hadn't come back with a cold. So that was the only part that got derailed. I did do something to like my left hip, ass cheek, something or other that made it a little bit difficult to walk for a couple of days.
Because you're old, yeah.
Yeah, I think honestly, I do think it's because I'm old and it was cold and I didn't stretch enough when I was there. So I think I just ended up with a little bit of extra muscle cramping.
DK stands for damn cripple, right?
Sometimes it does.
Yeah.
But I also made a thing this last week. I finally did a recap video.
Yes, you did.
Where I was talking about some various interesting game situations that came up in queues, which will at some point be uploaded to the Resupply YouTube this week.
This week.
So you'll be able to see that soon.
Yes.
But I'll probably touch on some of that stuff tonight as well. So I did that. Obviously, I posted a painting project that I finished not too long ago on our Discord, and been playing around with Diablo 4 a bit. So that's something I haven't done in a while. And all I can say is, Blizzard, if you don't fix your fucking servers, I'm never giving you another red cent again, because Jesus Christ.
I don't believe you.
Yeah, okay, fair. But I'm gonna be mad about it though.
Yeah, I've got a soapbox. I'm gonna talk about it. Check out your 5-minute crash out of game 1. Lucy, have a great round. Have a great day. Enjoy yourself. Nice to see you. No shots for you. It happens. Well, look, yeah. So that video will go up on the YouTube channel. If you haven't already followed the YouTube channel, Dan will sort that out for you.
Yeah. But it was definitely made by me and not engineered by Steve, because I think I forgot to full screen my VLC captures that I was doing on the game. So you get to see like me with a screen inside of a screen. Whatever. You're there for my yappy bullshit, not for seeing great visuals on the screen. So
yeah. Do you have your face cam on?
I didn't end up having it on just because it was taking up too much space in the rest of the frame, and I wanted to be able to point around at some of the things that were on the camera.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take a look this week when I go to upload. I'm probably not going to edit it, but we'll have a look. Is that going to be?
Please don't edit it. Just put it up as is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you going to do a few of them?
That was the only one I was planning from queues, but if something else comes up, I will probably make a vid. And I know I still have a inbound request from Bagel to do a recap video on one of the games that we played against them in the semifinal at Nats last year. And I'm hoping we'll do that soon, because the farther we get away from it, obviously the more your memory kind of degrades, but I've rewatched that game a few times and it's interesting. So we got things coming up, but don't know exactly when. But at least we managed to scoop the LLT podcast on our topic this week before they were able to post it.
Yeah, I haven't actually seen any updates on my YouTube about their channel. Has our video gone up from them?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Make sure you go check that out, because we were nothing but charming and insightful.
Totally unlike what we do on this show. Yeah.
Yeah, we had to try because it wasn't.
Well, we had a host who kept us focused for once, so that was a little bit of a different situation than we're used to.
I think we did go long periods of time where Luke didn't get to talk. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll stop talking now and actually let the host say something.
Well, he did say the Resupply had taken over his podcast. I guess he wasn't lying.
That's true. He did say that. This is on him. That's why you made a joke that you are back in your neck of the woods. He did let us ramble a lot. You say let.
Oh, there's no letting us, stopping us, whatever. Unless you're gonna turn off our mics.
Yeah, we actually just pushed our way into his studio and told him what was about to happen, and that's how we kind of work around here. They call those...
no grounds for consent whatsoever.
Allegedly. But we call those intangibles. And which may or may not be. Yeah, do you like that?
That's a terrible segue.
Oh, okay. Hang on.
That was so bad.
Let's circle back then. We'll come back to that. What's new with you, Fan? I think we've fallen off the Segway and it's currently rolling through the mall car park.
Might be.
Yeah.
With Paul Blart chasing after. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I took this week as vacation and still somehow managed to have to get involved with work stuff yesterday, which is completely uninteresting.
Boo!
Look, my bar to deal with anything work related when I'm on vacation is incredibly high. I just don't do it because I'm on vacation.
Yeah.
So it should give you some idea as to the level of bullshit that must have been happening for me to get involved with anything work related. No,
I tried to make ramen in the coffee pot and I broke everything.
If dude, only it was that simple. So,
I did something like that at an ex. I'm not gonna say which company it was because it was quite a big company.
I have guesses knowing your employment history.
yeah. But I at the time I used to do a lot of stencil art, and one of the things I would do is I would create stencils out of those old OHT plastic sheets. You know, the overhead projector plastic sheets that you would get.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I would use those to create stencils. And I was working for a large corporation. They had a very large copier machine in the office that I worked at, and I was like, oh, you know, what'd be real easy is if I just I'll just put one of these in the photocopier or in the printer, and then just print a design on there. Boom, stencil, easy. So it turns out the internals of those machines are extremely hot, and plastic doesn't do so good in extreme heat. And I pushed a button, and I heard a sound, and I didn't see anything come out of the machine. And then a very strong smell started emanating from the machine, and it smelled a lot like weed. But I was just like, oh fuck! I just fucked this machine up, and instead of telling anyone, I walked out of the copier room and went back to my desk. Yeah, and people were walking past going, what the fuck is it? Did you guys smell that? I'm like, yeah, what is that? Someone must have left like the toaster on or something. Turns out I ruined that very, very expensive copying machine. I think those things are like high 5 figures.
Oh yeah. No.
Allegedly.
Whatever. Go buy yourself another one, you rich motherfuckers.
Yeah.
I think I have the title for your autobiography now, though. It's just called "I Pushed a Button, a Smell Came Out," the Stephen Gardner story.
Guy next door. What's that smell? Yeah. Sugar did say you had a moment where they thought you cooked. I missed what you were talking about. Yeah. So don't do that. Allegedly do that. Don't do that. You know, when I when
that is a way more fun corporate story than any that I have ever had. So, you know, well done.
So some idiot intern at Fan's company ended up melting down one of the copier machines and had to deal with it on vacation. So good job, person who ruined the copy machine, whoever it was.
Idiot.
Yeah, again, if only it had been something that mundane, like that definitely would not have risen to the level of me having to get involved while on vacation.
Yeah. Well, I tell that story, that segment, if you will, as a way of getting into our next topic. Did you like that one?
we are just rolling in our non-professional natures today, aren't we?
I love how DK knew exactly what was going to happen. Oh, so good.
Yeah. I figured.
By sheer coincidence, it's about to be 4:20 p.m. here on the West Coast.
Oh no! I'll tell you that story off stream. Right. What are we doing here, gents? We were going to talk about some pretty cool stuff, and instead, just sat here cackling like a couple of idiots. DK, what are we doing? What are we talking about today?
Well, it's come up a few times in recent podcasts, both on our channel and on the LLT channel, about ranking players, how you evaluate players for random draw, what makes a good player. Lots of variations on this topic. And it, of course, came up regarding the MVP system, which we talked about when we were on Luke's podcast, and it has been mentioned a few times that, of course, the MVP system, it can't capture everything. There's a whole host of other things that make a good laser tag player, and not everybody is going to be well quantified by the MVP system. So I thought it might be a good idea to actually talk about, well, what are those other intangibles that might not be captured in a statistical display? Because we have stats on lots of stuff, but there are some things that you can't easily quantify, at least not with the data that we have available. So we might as well talk about that. And I know that they're coming out with a video sometime probably in the next couple of days that I know Luke had a conversation with Odin's Fist about player rankings and may touch on some of these topics, but I haven't heard it yet. I don't know what they're going to discuss. So
it's the same.
Yeah, and then we could say we did it first, even though we kind of didn't. But anyway, I'm sure it'll be an interesting conversation because Odin's Fist is one of the smartest players that we have in the game, so I'm looking forward to hearing that conversation.
I'm pretty sure we've brought this up as a topic before, like off stream. Like, hey, we should talk about this at some point.
100%.
Yeah, so we're trying to get in first because
So now we're talking about it.
Now we're talking about it.
Because
you happy people.
We're talking about it because we have competition who is about to talk about it, and if they talk about it first, then we could talk about it, but then we'd look like we were just copying them. When we are copying them, it's just we do our show live and they don't.
Shame.
Yeah.
Shame. Which I found
more
out.
More content is good. More content is good.
I found out that the Czech word for shame is Skoda, the car company.
Really?
Yeah.
So we were literally driving around in a box of shame all week in New Zealand? Awesome.
Skoda. It's interesting. We do it live. Okay, mate. It's interesting. I like intangibles is something that if you're a fan of sports, you hear that word quite a bit because it's kind of like the catch-all, right? For everything else that you can't measure. Well, that's literally what it is. Like the intangible stuff you can't like. You want that shame.
You can't tange.
Oh, you got a face full of Skoda.
Well done defining the word with the word.
Yeah.
Good job.
I can't tange it.
Webster.
Fuck you. So I bet you don't get this on the other podcast.
No, because he edits it out.
Yeah, smart. Yeah, so like.
Oh shit! Have we not been editing this out? Oh my god! I can't believe it.
You mean that whole story about the copier that's staying in? It's something that you hear like a lot. I listen to a lot of like American football shows, and they talk about this kind of stuff all the time, and I find it fascinating because, like, for me personally, I don't think. At my best, I might have been, like, up there in terms of skill. But I think what I personally have always brought to our scene is stuff that doesn't get measured in stats. Which is why maybe, personally, I don't put a lot of, time and effort into MVP. Because I personally don't... I don't know. I don't really relate to the process. But I guess we'll talk about, stuff that we think are the intangibles in players that we would look for or that we would like want in players if we were kind of building the perfect player, I guess.
I mean, I can definitely start that like intangible wise for why both of you ended up as my vice captains at various points over time. And it was it wasn't just because you're both good at laser tag. I mean, you are. Let's take that as a given for this conversation to start with. Like, as a generalized statement, whoever whatever we're talking about is set on the foundation of this player is pretty good at laser tag. You have to be in order to make good showings at tournaments. That's just a given. But in terms of the kind of X factor intangible things that that I saw in both of you. Like in DK's case, it's because he communicates so much better than I do. Not necessarily in game. I think in game I'm a pretty good communicator, but outside of game, shockingly I can be a little cold, a little distant, not always reading people correctly. I'm better at it now than I used to be, but definitely at the point where I kind of hooked DK as like, okay, yeah, you're coming along with me, kid. Even at the relatively young age he was at the time, he was always very good at actually reading people in the moment and being able to convey information to people, which is something else I have a problem with in certain settings. Again, less so now because I'm much older now, but at the time, like, there were just certain things and concepts that I could not get across to other people, but I could get across to DK, and he could go, oh yeah, that's what you're trying to do, and he could very easily kind of disseminate it across the team, like, okay, this is what Van is actually wanting us to do, and it makes sense, and this part is stupid and we're going to change it, but other than that, like, here it is. Steve-O, for you, like, your intangible is just that you have, and it's what carries like a good portion of this show, is like you're just you have this amazing charisma that just
Riz,
kind of
as the kids say.
Well, and it's and sure, it sounds fucking stupid when you put it that way with this fucking youth slang, youths, but that like is a huge part of why 06 and 08 worked, and it's because like you have this innate ability to get people to just kind of want to follow you to do stuff.
Suckers.
Chief Steve.
Oh, Chief.
Pretty much. And so when you get kind of both of those things, at various times, where like you got somebody that can break down ideas and communicate effectively to other people, and you've got somebody that people just want to be around, and and also is pretty good at just like keeping, can't necessarily always keep himself level, but can keep everybody else relatively level because of an overall personality set. Like,
right.
those are two huge intangibles for a team for outside the maze. Like inside the maze, the whole communication inside the maze also a huge issue and hugely important. That part was never a problem, like kind of across the board. But those other two pieces with you guys, like, yeah, those were very specific reasons why I grabbed you for teams. Like, I recognize that both of those various pieces that you guys have were things that I didn't, and
that's
so
very nice.
And so
of you
that
to
was
say.
that was important for the generation of every team in Sacramento, DK, that I had with you, and Steve-O, every team in Auckland that I had with you. Like, those were important foundational things for getting both of those teams to generate correctly.
True.
Yeah, it's funny that, like, because I've written down a bunch of the thing, like I've made a full list of the prep, and like I've written a
you
bunch
did work?
of yeah. I've written a bunch of those things down that you brought up, because and it's interesting for you to kind of say that stuff, because and not to have too much of a circle jerk here, but
have you seen our show?
Yeah. But part of your intangibles I have here is like leadership. So like that overall ability to guide players to get the best out of them, I've got a I've got a bunch of things that I've written down, and just some kind of general things that I think make a good intangibles to look out for. And then I've got a bunch of players that kind of I relate those things to. But what do you like, DK? What have you got on your on your notes? I know you've got notes.
In going back to the well, I did rewatch the video presentation / conversation that Kodama had with Luke, Sergeant Tucker. Might have been a couple other people from Loveland, but on that other podcast, and he
that other far superior podcast, yeah,
right. You know. He had broken down stuff like outside of mechanical skill, which we're going to say that mechanical skill governs a lot of like the MVP stuff. That's not entirely what he meant, but let's just like forget about that part.
Yeah.
But he had on there communication, adaptability, physical ability, positioning, and game sense and awareness. And I was like, that seems like a pretty good list. Before I had rewatched that, the list that I had made was communication, resource management, awareness. I mean, awareness is a pretty broad category. Teamwork / leadership, which you guys have kind of already mentioned, and athleticism. But all of those have components we can break down into. And like, if I had to really think about like just what are the top 5 things that I might think about in terms of intangibles that don't show up, those are kind of the 5 that came to mind. There are probably others, and a lot of those are all Venn diagrammed with each other.
Yeah,
like obviously teamwork and communication and awareness are all going to touch on each other in some fashion, but it's
almost a circle.
Yeah, they're still discrete in some sense. So
yeah, right. I've got basically those that like I put top 5 as well. Leadership, communication. I had in here attitude, like a player's like general attitude, and and kind of that, you know, come like what you were saying before, Than, about like stuff that happens out of the maze. We'll dive deeper into it. Another one I had was effort / dependability. And the fifth thing I had on here was what I put as 3 dimensions, but I think like game awareness is probably the better way to put that, because that kind of play is like things that a player might do in specific situations to anticipate what the direct opponent or what the opponent's about to do, that kind of stuff, which is actually like a massive like skill. Like if you have the ability to kind of anticipate what your opponents are about to do and then adjust your play style because of it, you can do some really cool stuff. But yeah, let's should we touch on leadership, because that seems to be the one that kind of is at the top, I guess, of an intangibles list.
I don't necessarily know that it needs to be at the top overall.
Right.
I think that's one of those that, you know, if you definitely, you know, need 1 to 2 people per team that kind of have that as a skill. You know, I think, or if everybody on the team has it, you have to kind of know, like,
that's a 2-edged sword.
Yeah.
There's a thing there where you have to understand like when you need to kind of subsume into the collective and who is actually supposed to be leading the team at any given moment. Like,
well, sometimes leadership, as a leader, you understand the importance of like not being the leader, I guess.
Yeah, there's a difference between being a leader and being like the star.
Yeah, that's right.
The show.
Exactly.
Like sometimes that's the same person. Maybe it's the person who's directing the offense, who really is, you know, the point guard, quarterback of the team, whatever, who's shouldering much load. But sometimes it might be one of your support players. It might be a resupply player who has kind of the kind of holistic view.
I reckon that you probably see it more often in a supporting player, because like say in our game, like Commander's main focus is attacking, like doing damage. And I find that oftentimes, I'm not calling those players dumb, but like
the fucking jocks.
But that's
they're scoring points.
That's their number one concern, right? They're out there trying to do damage, trying to rack the points up because it's in the team's best interest. And oftentimes, I think if you add in like the responsibility of having to do other like leadership stuff in game, that can detract from what they're trying to accomplish. Not necessarily, but I would say that if you look at most of the best commanders that we've had over time, I don't think they would necessarily be the leaders of their team. Like if you looked at their team that they were competing in at any particular point, maybe they weren't the person who was the leader of the team. They were just the commander. They were there getting the most points, doing the most damage, but not necessarily the other stuff.
Right.
Yeah, that's not to say that they weren't. It's just, I don't know. In my view, I think that it sort of comes from maybe a scout who's able, like in Brisbane, a scout in the helm can kind of be there directing traffic or, whatever they need to do. But
possibly, sure.
What kind of things do you guys think kind of come into that leadership, intangible?
Well, the reason that I had this as like a two-part category, that it was like teamwork / leadership, is that I don't think that everybody on the team needs to be a leader. If everyone is capable of stepping into that role when the situation calls for it, great. And it probably makes me a bad anarchist, but I feel like leadership still matters a lot of times, and it is good to have someone on the team that it's like, okay, but when the chips are down and we don't know what to do, like whose voice is going to fill that void and is going to either tell people what they need to do or just like what the overall strategy is going to be, but something, who is going to step up and fill that role. And if everyone has kind of an agreement as to who that is a real asset to have if you have kind of a clear model on your team. And it doesn't mean that they have to make all the decisions, but it's like, okay, chips are down, who are we listening to? But understanding what your role on the team is I think an underrated thing, especially at really high levels of competition where you might have a team of 4 or 5 players who are capable of playing commander or heavy at like a Nats level, but they're not all going to do that. If you can have people and people who might play scout, on a social night, and on the social night, it's like, they're gonna have to shoulder the offense. So they go out and they score 10K as a scout, something like that. But in a Nat situation, that's usually not what's going to be asked of them. Like you're going to be asked to play scout and to play scout in a way that is going to best complement your team, which a lot of times is not going to be scoring 10K. It is probably not going to be getting 8-9 meta kits. It's going to be playing in a way that is most supportive to your team. So being able to adapt to that situation and knowing like what your team needs and not just what is best for you or how are you going to score the most points. Like scoring the most points can be a valuable thing, but on its own, a team full of point scorers is not necessarily going to be a great team. Like knowing how to work together is important.
But we've seen that in the past, like actual examples of both of those, having people who understand their roles and also a super team full of like heavy hitters that don't necessarily perform as well as they,
should have on paper.
Than, you got any thoughts?
I mean, I feel like DK covered it. Like, there's on top of the in-game piece, like then there is the out-of-game piece where it's the the actual building of the team and trying to bring pieces together. And I think that's so sometimes your team ends up getting built for you. Like if you're traveling and it's like, well, these are the 6 people from our site that can go. So okay, so we have to figure out what we can do within this unit of 6 people because this is who we have. Okay. in kind of a in a wider view where you've got 12 people who put their hands up, and it's like, okay, well, now how do we build how do we build to maximize whatever outcome we're looking for? Like, is the outcome that we're looking for that we definitely want one team that is far and away better, and then the other team is whatever's left over? Do we want to build so that both teams that are going are relatively equal? There's some things that go in with that, but trying to put a team together where all the personalities balance and the skill sets balance and all of that. I mean, that's there is definitely a trick to it.
Yeah.
Because you can 100% put a team together that looks good strictly on paper, but if you haven't taken into account that, actually these two people hate each other,
or that's like the easy pitfall that you can notice off the bat. But
right, but because it's the easy one, that's the one I'm using.
But sometimes you also end up with really skilled players who just for whatever reason do not play well together. Like their styles either clash, or they both have kind of the maybe they have the same play style, but you don't want to have two people who are copying each other, because that's going to leave your team open to be exploited in other areas.
Yeah, maybe if
so
you had
little things like that.
Two players who predominantly play commander, one has to drop to the heavy role, let's say. Like those are two fundamentally different positions. So.
Yeah, but it's like, but can you play heavy? That's not true for everyone. I mean, there are some people who are really skilled at both positions, but
not me.
That historically speaking, it seems like, and Rusty, it seems like people kind of fall into kind of one or the other, as that's their preferred or their more skilled 3-hit roll, which just kind of happens.
So I had a bunch of bullet points here that I put under like a leadership kind of category, because I kind of have I think we all have similar thoughts. I was thinking the same thing, Stu. Both of those names popped into my head as well. So for leadership, I've got the ability, or they're able to give their teams like the correction that's needed. So like after a bad loss, they can pick their team up if need be. They can level them out if they're too angry. They can make those adjustments. Hey, look, you stayed out too long. How about do this? They're that voice, right? They're guiding light. As an add-on to that, they can make adjustments depending on who their next opponent is. Help to put together play strategies. Probably the biggest, the example that's cemented in my head with that is the totem pole in 2006. I mean, we had Brisbane most of, if not all of that week. We had them at all of that week. And when it came to the finals, their leaders stepped up and put a game plan into place that just rocked us, fuckers.
Assholes.
On the same track as what you were saying, Than, like, it's the ability to bring their players through the grind of like weekly Nats trainings, if that's where your site or your team is at, that like 6 to 12 month period. And obviously the Lovelanders will definitely know what this is like. That whole long period of time when you've all got the same goal, your leaders step up. Hey, Bisque. Your leaders step up and keep you on the rails throughout that entire process, and that's not an easy thing to do. And the last thing I had is a lot of times they display a lot of they display the ability to be able to teach other people, because I think you're all still got to learn. I think when you stop learning, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. You stop learning, you're dead.
I had
time to stop learning.
I put a couple of names in here of players that I think kind of excel with these traits. At the top of that list, I have Than. I mean, I'm always going to be biased because both of us obviously have seen it firsthand. How that trait transforms a site. But right up there, Tragedy, Night Owl, Thunder, all of those people are extremely good leaders, extremely good teachers.
I mean, where do you think I stole some of my stuff from? It was definitely after seeing Tragedy and after talking to Night Owl a bunch too. Like it's like oh.
And that's not to take anything away from anyone else. Those are just the names that jumped out at me. Right. What's the next thing we want to talk about?
I think one thing that was on all of our list was communication.
Yeah.
And at least for me, especially after some of the recent tournaments, if anything, I put even more stock and more emphasis on good communication as something I really, really like to see in a player and something that I really desire in a teammate. That I would rather, if you have two players and one who's maybe slightly more skilled but is a terrible communicator versus someone who might not be as skilled but is a much better communicator, I'm probably going to want the better communicator most of the time. I mean, if that gap's relatively small. Obviously, if it's a huge gap, then you make do. But I think that good communication really can raise players several levels in terms of their utility to the team. And it's something that I think it can be easy to take for granted if you've played on high-level teams who do have good communication. But this, I think, maybe kind of goes back to the leadership thing a little bit too, that when you tell your team that they need to communicate more, like, okay, but what are you actually looking for them to communicate? So it's like, it's easy to tell people they fucked up. It's harder to tell people, here's how you fucked up and here's why this is a fuck up. Like understanding what kind of information is useful. So like you get key information to your players, like where is the enemy resup, especially if they've been flushed from a place and you find out where the enemy medic is, get that information to your team. When is the enemy heavy down so your team can go in without getting shot down by them? Where are those final one or two players who are running around and you guys really need the elim? Can you help your team get to where they need to go? Like, hey, this spot's free, resup, come to here. Like all of those are really valuable things. But when you just say communicate, like what are you actually looking for? So those are like important things. And like one thing that I was really trying to emphasize to my team during random draw was don't just call out where someone is, call out where they're going. If they're moving, like they're at red base, they're headed toward E-door, or they're at red base, they're headed toward E50 or toward the middle of the field. Like that information is way more critical because if I'm coming from one direction and they're going to go in a totally opposite way, like by the time I get to red base, because they said they were red base, they're long gone. So like that's really important is just like, don't just say on me or here, give me a location, and don't just give me a location, give me a heading. Like direction and distance are both really important.
I think it's
funny that
was it Gretzky said don't be where the puck is, be where the puck's gonna be. It's kind of that same thing. Like if you if you've got like a bearing of where someone's going, it drives me absolutely crazy when someone in a maze yells here. Here or back wall, both of those things piss me off so much more than anything else. I hate back wall so much. We play in a square. Auckland's a square arena. Back wall's dumb. That's useless to me. Or
it's the back relative to where you enter the arena.
Stupid.
There has to be an agreement on what the back wall actually is. If you don't know which is the back wall, then that doesn't help. So having clear names and labels for things is also important for that kind of communication.
And then of course that there's that moment when you're saying back wall because your brain is short circuited and you can't remember what it's actually supposed to be called. That happens to me constantly when I'm making call outs. Like my brain just short circuits as to what this area actually is supposed to be called.
It's what happens.
The dumbest shit ever.
Keep the mercury in the fish.
I've had the intention the last couple of Nats of just trying to get my team into the arena, and without a game going, us just to call out different positions so we're all on the same page. I have not been able to actually pull it off, or we actually do an arena where we have like a full kind of practice in the arena, but we at least do a walkthrough and make sure that we have consistent labeling on places. But I might even put more emphasis on that in the future, saying like, let's really make sure that we remember what these places are called and where people are moving from one place to another. And on that note, certainly in the last 2 Nats teams that I've been on, one thing that's also really helpful is not just calling out information to your team, but acknowledging when you've heard information your team has given to you, and if you are taking care of it. Like if someone says, hey, Rusty's headed to blue, and you say, I'm on it, at least then you know that you've been heard, that someone is going to go pick them up there. And if you know that somebody on your team is going to take care of that, okay, well, good. Now maybe you have the capacity to, all right, well, if someone's going to cut him off at blue, he's probably going to try to go to this other place. So if I position myself there, then we have better arena coverage. So like all of those are important parts of the communication, and not just shouting out what's going on, but have you heard what your teammate has said? Have you communicated where you're going to go? Like all of those can be really important things as well, because I think it's like step 1 is calling out where the enemy player is, but step 2 is like all those other things. Based on that information, what else do we need to know?
Yeah, I think like the ability to be able to use your teammates' names as well is massive in game, because a lot of times people just yell shit, and I think if you've got the ability to effectively communicate with your attacking partner, let's say, like if I'm running in to attack a resupply and I just yell heavy down, okay, someone might hear it. But if I run into a situation where I've taken down the heavy, and I know that you're attacking with me, DK heavy's down, resup up or something, and that just means that I get your attention. Specifically I'm talking to you, and so it's not just putting random information out there for anyone to hear. You're specifically communicating to your team. I think it's massive.
And it is hard sometimes to get your monkey brain to cooperate with you in the moment.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But again, like that's practice, repetition, doing these things.
Yeah.
Knowing what to do. Yeah.
But that's where if you get to play weekly, which so few of us do, these are things that if you have the ability to work on them on a weekly basis, like repetition breeds habit.
Yeah.
And habit breeds something.
But there were definitely things that happened at random draw where I was just like, fuck, this would not have happened if I were playing on a weekly basis. Like I would know, I would have like trained myself enough in lead up to the event to be like, don't do this. Don't get yourself into this situation. But you forget because you haven't played in however long. So shaking off the rust is always difficult. Should put that on Intangibles too. How quickly can someone shake off rust?
Rusty.
Some people are really good at it.
Yeah, well, I mean that comes down to another one that I actually have on my list, attitude, but we'll get there.
True.
I would say some great communicators that popped into my head. I had Hoodlum pop in there. I had Virus pop in there. I had Taipan pop in there. Especially like Taipan. And maybe this is because I saw it as an example when he was over here for Zone Nats, or Zone Worlds, whatever one it was.
Zone tourney something or the other.
The way that he was able to effectively communicate game plans with his team outside of the arena. And obviously we've seen firsthand his ability to do that inside the arena as well. Yeah. I think it's massive. Yeah, the Brisbane team, when you watch them on a weekly basis, they tell each other so much stuff. I mean, Rusty yelling Peter at tournaments back in the day, like that's that's all of that stuff like is communication. So it's massive. Anything else to add? You guys think of any other players that you want to add in that kind of category?
I mean, those are all good choices. I would on that note, I mean, I would also say that relaying information doesn't always have to be shouting either.
Yeah.
and this is something that that Thunder brought up a lot in our conversations in the run up to the 2023 Auckland Nats, was pretty much we developed a habit of everybody does a check-in when they come back to resupply. Like, what's the situation? Like, okay, medics on how many lives? Last time we talked to the commander, here's what the situation was in terms of their specials. Here's where the enemy is. So just doing like those little quick check-ins, and they're usually at low volume too, because especially if the game's not gone well for you and you're the medic, like I'm not advertising, guys, I'm on 8 lives. But when the scouts come back, I'm just like, guys, just so you know, we got fucked. I'm down to 8. So make sure you keep capped up a little bit more than you otherwise would. So sometimes those just kind of like quiet exchanges. But I think that's a really good time to disseminate information too, is when someone is back for resupply, because in a lot of cases, I think that kind of goes to what you were saying, Steve, about sometimes the backline players do make really good leaders because they sometimes have access to more information than even the attacking players do. Because the attacking players are all spread out, going to their own different locales. But you've heard from every one of them when they come back as to what they've been doing, like how many specials they have. Oh, I just missiled these players, or the enemy resup is over here. You guys are going to go do a base run, all those kinds of things. So those are like, I think, opportunities for good, quick check-ins. And it's also knowing what to do with the information, but that's when we start crossing into another category.
Well, like, just one last thing, like volume is such a big thing. We've got a lot of and yeah, exactly. So Stu, I was going to say that you're probably a great example of a resupply player who communicates effectively with their team as a backline leader. But we've got a lot of players that make a lot of noise in our maze, and I think there comes a point where if you're too loud, if you're yelling for, just when stuff happens, it can actually be quite distracting and like throw off the kind of balance of your team as well. Like if you have somebody who's defending the resupply screaming when stuff happens, it's so hard for the resupply to communicate with each other. So but yeah, good points. Great points, guys. Great points. What's next? What do you want to talk about next? I tell you what. Let's talk about attitude.
Yep. Let's do that.
That I like attitude as an intangible because oftentimes, and I've been guilty of this as well, is the ability to stay level at Nats. We've had times where, like, I'm a pretty emotional guy. I get mad in some instances. But I found that when I've been most effective is when I've been able to not overreact during a loss, especially, I think. I think if you can stay level, you don't panic, you don't abuse other players, like, you're generally pretty pleasant to be around inside and outside the arena. I think those are really important intangibles for keeping just a general positive vibe around you and your team. I think maybe I just kind of rolled that into teamwork and thinking about it, like being a good teammate is part of teamwork. But and sometimes that is tough because you do want to react to a loss somehow, but you want that to turn into like fuel to go into the next game. Like I'm not a big believer in like mystical bullshit, but there was a certain thing that happened, like when we lost the first game of finals in Auckland, that for whatever reason, like all of us were immediately on the same page and we're locked, and we we locked in, like, okay, we know what we have to do. We have no other choice. How are we going to do that? Okay, here's the game plan. Let's go for it. There was no, fuck, we were so close. We could have done this. We could have done that. It was just like, okay, that's over. Here's the situation. Let's go take care of business. And for whatever reason, it's like when you get that makes it a lot easier to just transition to the next game. So
you can't, you can watch teams self-destruct in very short order when somebody, when there's even like one person on the team whose attitude isn't right in the moment. And yeah, that's definitely not to say that you can't show some emotion after a loss. Like sometimes certain losses really suck, and they suck even more when you realize that like you may have made the costly mistake that fucked your team.
Mm-hmm.
So guilty numerous times over the years, but so some of that goes back into the team building and leadership aspect of sometimes you need to realize that like players in general, not always, in general, know when they've done something wrong that has cost their team a game. Like especially at a Nats level, when you've done something wrong. And so the knowing that certain players are just going to need like a 2-minute walk outside to clear their own heads for that mistake, and then to come back in and be like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
That's there's a massive difference in that type of attitude versus you made a mistake that costs that cost the team the game, or you're gonna blame a ref for not making a call or something, and allowing that essentially that poison to continue to seep out and infect the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Right.
Like there's you can be disappointed, you can be mad, but you need to rein it back in and get back in sync and move on to the next one.
Because that's again part of being a team is realizing that it's not all about you, and that goes for good moments and for bad moments.
Yeah.
Like because you made a brilliant play and you kicked the entire enemy resup, like great, good on you. That didn't win the game single-handedly for your team. And likewise, you might have fucked up big. You're now in your own head, but guess what? That wasn't the only thing that happened in the game. A bunch of other things didn't happen. So don't make it all about yourself, for good or for bad.
I had a couple of players that jump out under this. DK, you were one of them. Popped in my head as someone who like stays pretty level most of the time. Kodama, definitely someone who generally has a pretty great attitude during tournaments. Ace was another one. Just like good to be around, like enjoyable to be around, and that stuff to me is important, not just for the growth of a team or the performance of a team, but the growth of the scene as a whole. Because we player driven, we do these things because we love it, and so having people around like that makes the environment makes the environment infectious, but that's probably a different.
That does also happen a disproportionate amount of the time.
But it helps to grow the scene. So yeah. All right. On my list, effort/dependability, I think is a really important intangible.
See this one for me goes back to attitude.
Well. Like all three of these, I think I have at least internally rolled into my idea of teamwork, which maybe it's probably good to break these down into further subcomponents, but
I agree.
Again, these are all related, but
they're like you say, the Venn diagram, they're all kind of overlapping. But I guess you're right. Like the attitude kind of, because I have in here, like you never quit in a game. Even if you're getting your ass kicked, like in a game, you don't see them drop their gun and start walking around the arena. That you can always rely on them to be there for the team. They commit to the process. So again, like in the build up to a Nats, if you can depend on a player to be there every week to do the hard work that it takes to become a good teammate, I think that's super important as well. But I think maybe all of that sort of stuff could come under attitude as well. Especially because I also had Kodama in this list. But I put like mischief in there. I put know-it-all. young Auckland player, know-it-all, in that list as well, is always he's dependable. Always. Like, in-game, I can depend on him to do the things that he needs to do in a game. And
I put Disco Monkey on this list also because I've never seen him give up on a game, and if there's a game that has an open spot, he's always on it. So he's down for as much laser tag as he can get. So he's definitely on the dependability side.
Yeah, right.
As far as getting to tournaments, maybe not always, but hey, real life happens.
Yeah, that's right.
But once he's there, definitely dependable.
Right on. But yeah, I think those things are good intangibles. Maybe like subcomponents of attitude.
I will tell you to that point about like effort and attitude. Like I can excuse a fuck up in a game. That happens. We
100%.
all make mistakes. I can even excuse if maybe you're still in your own head a little bit and maybe it takes you another game or two to shake it off. That's fine. But the quickest way to get on my shit list is if I see you give up in a game. If you just fucking quit. Even if it's a social game. Yeah, just play. Don't ruin everybody else's fun. And like we had one example. I won't name names, but we had a player in Sacramento where at the end of games, if they were the last one left, they wouldn't want to run, and they'd be like whatever, just kill me out. But then they'd get upset if you tried to missile them. I'm like, no, you don't get to
don't want to get missile.
You forfeited your right by not running away, by not trying. And they would be like, well, I'm not trying to injure myself. This is just a social game. Like, no one said you had to injure yourself and sprint around the arena, but just like fucking try a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you're.
You can't have that both ways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that was always just, it drove me nuts.
Yeah, giving out there used to be, and I guess it still is depending on the tournament, but it was a conductible, unsportsmanlike conductible offense. I remember one of our players in 2003 got busted to medic for one of the rotational rounds because they went out to the middle of the arena into a very open area in the Oakley Arena. I think that was the killing field or the star field, whatever it was called.
I remember hearing about this,
And just stuck their gun up in the air and was like, just missile me, game's over. It's like, come on, dude. Like, yeah, you got to try. You can't be that guy. Especially in an age where, like, people put a lot of stock into, like, MVP and stuff like that. Giving away missiles because you gave up.
Yeah, that's double shitty, too, because it's like, well, now you're fucking with the stats rankings, too.
Exactly, yeah. So, yeah. That's
the game ain't over till it's over.
Yeah.
Seeing as how we got eliminated from the 2019 tournament, specifically because a player clipped their gun and got missiled in the last 2 seconds, and that ended up getting us kicked from the tournament. Like,
be dependable.
Play out the whole game until you hear game over. You keep playing and you play at 100%. You do everything you can. You never know when that last second decision can make a difference.
Like you said, it like at a base level, it's selfish. You're ruining the fun of other people that are playing the game. And I think you've got an obligation as a player to care about the enjoyment of the game for everyone, not just yourself. But I don't know.
It's almost like we're a community of people.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's weird.
Man. That's weird.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It's weird that in a player-driven community we should care about
each other. That's weird.
Yeah, and like so we should try to make the games good for everybody.
Yeah,
it's weird. You
had to make a calculated decision to stop in our round robin, but when the missile tournament, you refused to give that up. Good. Like there is a difference between like, I don't want to injure myself, but flat out just standing still in an open space in the arena with your gun up, like.
I think all of us can draw a heavy distinction between, player X has a really fucked up back and so therefore may have limited mobility in order to be able to actually evade, and so probably is not going to be like moving super fast to get away from things, but is still going to be trying to evade a thing.
That's
as above all things, try.
All right, what else you guys got? I've got one other thing on my list, but what sort of stuff do you guys want to talk about?
Well, I kind of want to save awareness for last because it's sort of the most broad category. I do feel like we should probably touch on athleticism at least a little bit.
But that's kind of is that an intangible? Because those are things you can
Right, but it's not something that's captured. It's not something that's captured in the MVP system. It's not something that's captured in our stats system. There's no real way of knowing who is like a better athlete than someone else, other than just to say, well, the best athletes have the best performance.
I guess, but I don't know. I always, whenever I hear intangibles, I liken it to the NFL, because again, it's the most often I hear that word. But I don't know. Like,
well, I guess
you could measure that. You could measure athleticism if you were to make us run beep tests or like, like a 4-minute mile or like whatever.
Right, but that's kind of like the way that I would categorize this, though, is that athleticism can have different effects, and like you were saying for timing people and how fast they are. Like speed is an asset. Like all things being equal, if you have two players who are equally skilled and one's faster than another, like that is an advantage for sure.
For sure.
But speed's only an asset if you know how to use it. And there's a difference between foot speed and reaction speed.
Yeah.
Like, okay, if you're playing in the Loveland Arena, you need someone, preferably someone who's playing heavy on your team. Whoever's playing heavy on your team needs to be able to sprint to the top of that ramp, and they need to be able to get there before the enemy heavy is in your resup. You don't even need to get to the middle of third floor, but you need to be able to get to the top before the enemy heavy does and just kicks your entire team out.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's the only time that like raw foot speed matters that much. The only time that you need to be fast, you only need to be as fast as it takes to clear a corner in 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Which, if you position yourself correctly, might not mean you have to move that far.
Right.
If you position yourself poorly and you have to run down a long straightaway, well, then yeah, you're going to have to be faster. Otherwise, you shouldn't have been there. You put yourself in a stupid situation.
Right.
I'm more mean, I think, in the sense that tournaments, especially in Nats, are a marathon, not a sprint. So it's one thing for people to be able to go all out on day one. But are you going to be at full function on day 3, 4, 5? Those are things that I think, even if you are playing every week, just playing once a week, I don't think is going to get it done for you.
Right.
It doesn't.
Personally. Like I think you're going to have at least, let's say minimum 2 other times a week where you're doing some kind of cardio exercise and you're trying to increase your endurance over time. Like, again, I'm not saying that you can't be a successful laser tag player with lots of body types. You absolutely can. There are players who are very thin. There are players who are very good who are bigger bodied. There are players who are good who are tall. There are players who are good who are short. But you can use your physicality to your advantage in different ways, and you can make improvements based on whatever your baseline is.
Right.
It doesn't mean you have to become an elite athlete who can run the 40 in X amount of seconds, or something like that. But right, you want to be able to play and operate at the level that you want to play over the span of an entire tournament. And I think that does take training and it does take effort.
Yeah. Oh, right on. Okay. Yeah, in that case, then, whatever.
You let me explain my meaning here.
Well, I mean, that was one of the theories for why we were doing so much work outside of tag in the run up to both 06 and 08 in Auckland. Like, there was a reason why we were getting the second night of games on Sundays just for pure practice. But we were it was jogging as a team, like from the site, like a kilometer to that nearest park, playing ultimate frisbee with both teams for like 45 minutes to an hour, and then jogging back and playing tag. And the reason for the ultimate frisbee was because it was a sneaky way of getting all of you guys cardio.
Well, do you remember, like, that wasn't just what we would do. We were doing like sprint stuff as well. Like, we do like sprint training for like 20 minutes and then go into ultimate and then run back to the site. Like, we were doing exactly what you just said, DK. We were working on our endurance, our fitness, and as a byproduct, our chemistry as a team. Like,
if you can do that as a team, that is real magic that you
sure.
can get right there, because it's also enduring things and building up that camaraderie as a team. Like, we didn't have a chance to work out with our team for the 2023 Nats, but we did have like Discord calls every week, every 2 weeks, something like that. But something that's going to build up your teamwork.
Yeah.
But if you can build your teamwork and your endurance and your athleticism at the same time, then that's like, again, not surprised you guys did so well in both of those tournaments.
Well, like you care about what happens to everyone else on your team, and in our case, we had we had our A and B teams doing the training, so like we cared about what happened to the B team, like, and seeing them succeed, especially in Ballarat. Like, they did far better than we thought they were going to. Well, maybe we had high expectations, but they played really well as a team because they were there with us doing the training. And probably the most recent example of that is just everything that we saw and heard come out of Loveland after last year's nets.
100%. Yeah, they really had trained their B team up to, they were humming it high level.
Yeah, shot the leaders of that site. Well bloody done. Was there any other ones you want to touch on before we get into kind of awareness? Being aware that fans got to go soon.
Yeah, let's talk about awareness, because I'll
got like 45 minutes. We're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll fold resource management into awareness, because I really do think there's a big overlap there. Like, resource management is a kind of subcategory of awareness. It's just something that came to mind because it was something that I stressed to my team in random draw, but then I realized, I'm like, I don't know that I really fully explain what that means. Like, I can't just say resource management. Like, okay, to what extent though? And then I started thinking about it more. I'm like, it really would take me a long time to really explicate like all of the different things that I fold into that. But basically I just like simplified it to stay at half lives or above.
Yeah, just in case.
That's the simple version.
Yeah, just in case something bad happens, like 3 nukes come your way. Hopefully you don't die out. But yeah, if you're under 10, it drives me crazy, especially as an ammo.
Yeah.
Especially as an ammo.
It again depends on situation in the game. If you're sitting at 10 lives, but you're at 60 seconds left in the game, like whatever, that's more than enough. But if you're at the mid point of the game and the enemy commander hasn't let off a single nuke, 10 lives ain't enough.
Yeah.
You need
it is not.
Be filling up right now.
You keep telling them they would understand when they played at the tournament, and they keep getting flustered and keep trying to pick them up that they played the tournament. It was like the Danny DeVito meme. I don't know this meme.
They started blasting, I'm guessing. So anyways, I started blasting.
But yeah, exactly right. Like seeing the reaction to it is just, it's a very special thing. As somebody who's part of the leadership group of that site, you would definitely understand, Tucker, how special that moment is, seeing your whole site thrive. It's really great. Awareness. I like to, especially in our game, I really like, and I think Gen 8 has kind of changed the kind of awareness you need. So Gen 8 has given a lot of information, which is awesome, but it's also removed a lot of people's ability to get game awareness from other sources. For instance, hearing what happens over the loudspeakers is huge. Hearing
and knowing what all the sounds mean.
Exactly.
Every single one of them in the catalog.
But not only that, being aware of the sounds coming from your opponents, specifically like the blabbermouth suits, who at the most quiet moment in any arena is going to be like, warning, you've got 3 lives left.
Like, fuck.
Yeah. Shush.
Attention, enemy commander, please nuke my stupid ass out of the game right now.
Stuff like that, like being aware, and like when you have a moment where like you heard, we had a moment the other week where I heard, I think I was the commander. I heard the opponent's ammo go to 8 lives, and I had 2 nukes. And I was like, oh, I'm going to drop them right now. Ran downstairs, dropped them, and it ended up being that they took 2 resets and they died out of the game. And this was like this was in a game where it was very early in the piece, and I think I was up against like maybe Leech. I think this is when he was here, and it's real satisfying when that shit happens. But it's something that people aren't aware of in the game. You know, they're just kind of very in their head focused around just shooting people. So that's a big one for me. Is the sound effects coming from out of a maze.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's that whole thing of, you know, it's a building block process to build that situational awareness. Like, you know, you've got to first be comfortable with, you know, what you have to first be comfortable knowing whatever your own situation is within the game in terms of, you know, your shots, your lives, and how that relates to, you know, the game state that you're currently in. And then kind of once you've kind of got that as like, okay, I understand where I sit in these various scenarios, then it's that building out of, okay, well, now I can, you know, pay more attention to the things that aren't me, because let's face it, like if you're not paying attention to your own stuff first, you're potentially going to run yourself into some problems that you can't get out of.
Yeah.
So
like dying out of a game early.
Yeah, like dying out of a game, really. So you do definitely need to, you know, as a foundation, make sure you understand where you are within game states.
Yeah.
Now, I definitely agree with you that like Gen 8 has removed some of the mental load around listening to the PA and like, I don't think people realize that, you know, the gunfire sounds that happens are different if red is shooting green or green is shooting red. Like, I don't think people necessarily understand that. So you actually can tell just by listening to the PA which team is pushing and which team is getting wrecked, or if it's pretty even, just by listening to, you know, the shooting sounds over the PA.
Yeah.
You know, not having to keep your shots and your lives in your head the whole time is so lazy now. This is a get off my lawn moment. It's so lazy just being able to look down at your gun and go,
raised
oh,
the floor
this is
of where awareness needs to be.
Yeah.
Like it hasn't fundamentally altered the game, but there is now a certain minimum threshold that everybody needs to be at, because there is no excuse not to know what your shots and lives are at any given.
It's added a different awareness you need to be aware of, which is how often am I looking at my gun? And a lot of new players really struggle with that, because every time they get shot, he goes down, or, you know, whatever the case is, like they are constantly checking. So yeah, it's kind of swung the other way in some instances, like you know,
I will occasionally check my gun after I've been shot if I don't know where I got shot from, so at least I can see who shot me.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Who the hell shot me?
It's important, but like,
it was Bagel. Of course, it was Bagel.
But like,
what a dick.
But doing it too much, you know, you swung back the other way, right?
Yeah. You don't need to look every time.
Yeah, I would say as well, like, a good awareness thing is like, as a heavy or a resupply, getting the balance right of when to take your heavy down and give them shots and lives is such a underrated intangible. Like, having the ability to know who just came in and got taken down. Like, if it was a commander that ran in and got taken down, and you know, now your heavy's on one hit. Knowing that, and knowing, okay, sweet, I think the trade-off is we resupply the heavy and deal with whatever scouts are going to follow in after, or whatever. Like, that stuff, being aware of all of that kind of stuff is real important. And again, it's not a thing that a lot of people understand, because not everyone pays attention to who the other player attacking is and what their role is. Like, if you're unaware of what that such a detriment. The faster a player can pick that up, the better, I think.
Yeah, there is definitely it's huge when you know if you're heavy and the commander go 1-to-1, your heavy's on 1 hit point, commander's down, and you can get that quick double off on the heavy so that their downtimes basically match.
Mm-hmm.
And now the commander has lost resources, the heavy has gained resources, which is going to force the commander to have to retreat back sooner, because if you can keep that balance right of continuing to get your heavy stuff, like your heavy is going to have stuff much longer than the commander is in that point. And the game state flow on effect of being aware of that and being able to send a commander back with low shots, low lives, because they haven't been able to break in, and you can immediately counter your heavy who is nearly full because they've been able to take resups without getting broken. Like, that is an entire game state flip potentially in that moment if you're able to pull it off. Now, granted, it obviously depends on who else is attacking with the commander. Can you get that double off without the scouts taking the last pick out? Can you deal with the scouts? Or if the commander is making the mistake of attacking solo, like, there's very few commanders that can solo a well set up resupply. I'm not saying it doesn't
happen. Especially now.
Yeah. Like, but now it's much harder.
It was more common that you would have like a carry player play commander who is capable of breaking an entire backline by themselves, but there's too many good players, and the meta has evolved too much so that there aren't the same kinds of a lot of lazy defenses most of the time. Except, I mean, occasionally, like, you'll end up with inexperienced B teams who maybe haven't been through the ringer, but like all of the best players at sites, you're not going to find this kind of soft spots anymore. So yeah, the awareness of having that, of being able to top off your heavy while they're defending, and the awareness of a commander to be like, don't just keep bashing your head into a wall. Like, you need to have better synergy with the team. Like, basically, the first time you go up for a one-on-one attack, your commander, and you're facing an opposing heavy, if you know that they know where you are, well, you need to change something about your strategy right now. Either you need to go back to the midfield, you need to pull one of your scouts so you can set up a second angle, but you can't keep doing that and just rattling off one special every 10 seconds or so. That's not a good enough pace as a commander.
The apex of that awareness to keep your heavy full is when a resupply can anticipate the shot coming in. So like when they resupply, then lights. When
have
they
some lights, Steve. Have some lights.
When they anticipate that trade off and put the actual resup into the heavy at the exact same time that they take down the opponent opposition player, or like say a heavy's trying to crack a heavy. When they mutual and you as a resupply player can get your heavy at the same time, that's kind of the apex of that, as we want to be.
When you can when you can essentially resupply with the deactivation. There is something extraordinarily satisfying as
they
a resupply player.
They hear
like, shots live resupply and But then also, like, watching a heavy's reaction, like, if you manage to pull that off, it's like, oh, mana from heaven, this is great.
If you've got the timing off, and then so this goes to the attacking player, like if your awareness as a commander is up, understanding how to kind of manage downtimes of the opposition heavy to kind of maximize the amount of damage to do. Like, you're going to get taken down, so if you can manage get in and take a meta kit before, just before the heavy comes up or something like that. Sort of awareness is how you kind of combat that. And then it comes down to who's able to process the game more effectively. And that, I think that comes down to personal personal players. But a big example, one thing that I had as an awareness thing, or this, playing in three-dimensional chess, is anticipation. Like, I've seen players.
Let's do the time warp again.
Have had a couple. Stu, thank you for the prime sub, bro. Lights. Oh, incoming hype train. Anticipation is a big thing. Like, watching players understand that. Do things like fake people out. I love doing that shit, and I love seeing when players do it. Like, you're like, I make a point of that player thinking I'm going to run around that corner. So you take the step and you see them in your peripherals run the other way. So you turn back, you go back to where you just were, or seeing players like Scythe, who I have at the top of this list, doing the shot fake out. I'd never seen that done before until, Jesus. Sorry about that. Money coming at you. Thank you.
Really was
okay,
money
I say
shot.
now. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, that was. I had to switch my view over to the Twitch screen. Oh my god.
Yeah, just got Hadouken of cash. But yeah, doing the shot fake. Like, I never saw it outside of Detroit. Like, I think Detroit was the first time I'd seen Scythe do the wha and then pop out. Like, that stuff is three-dimensional chess, right? You
Possibly
like
even 4.
yeah. You like talking to empty spaces if your teammate is there. I love doing that shit. Oh, dude, he's right here. He's here. Reset. And you watch them run away. You're like, oh, okay, bye.
or doing, it's like one of my favorite things to do in Sacramento, especially on social nights, because it doesn't work too often at Nats level, but it used to work brilliantly on social nights. Basically calling for a resupply, and an attacking person just listening for, they're just calling the resupply, and the second they hear you call it, they didn't listen to the PA to hear that the sound effect never went, and they step out around the corner to come in, and Heavy just steps out and goes, no.
Yep.
And then you resupply the Heavy.
No, see, the next level move is if you can trick them by pretending as the Heavy that you didn't want a resupply,
and you
having the ammo resupply the medic, so they get the sound, and then you scream,
and then you're like, no.
Yeah. And then the enemy commander comes in, and you're like, fuck you.
I love doing that shit.
That was the next example I was going to give, because that one is way more funny. They're both funny. That one's funnier.
Yeah. No. Okay, he's coming in, and then they run out. Blah. Fuck you.
Yeah, we even had a version of that. I think we just said, like, if we need to run that play, we're just gonna say, okay, do get help. You guys want to do get help? Yeah, let's do get help.
I don't want to do get help. You remember Ace did that in the Q's tournament with us to Jerbear, motioning beside himself, telling me to get down, and I triple tapped him in the back because of it. So that stuff is all awareness. Those are all awareness intangibles. When you can start out maneuvering your opponent, 2 or 3 spaces ahead of where they are. Like, that stuff, as my body fails me, I have to rely more and more on doing that kind of shit.
The mind games are hilarious too.
Yeah.
Like, we had another game at random draw where I remember I ran past Odin one game, and then they were like DK's here, Autumn, don't drop your nuke here. And I was like, man, you want some bullshit. You're not, Autumn is not anywhere close to here. You're not telling people not to nuke. Like, you're trying to misdirect me right here. And we had a whole conversation after the game. It was
That's
like,
brilliant.
Yeah, Autumn wasn't anywhere close. I'm just like, I know you too well. I know you're just bullshitting me. Trying to fake me out.
I think the counter to this is in an in-game scenario. So we played the other week. I was the last player on my team. I was commander. And I ended up lasting the rest of the game, and I think we won because of it. And it was 5v1 or something like that, or 4v1. And understanding how the other players that you're playing against work will allow you to do some of this stuff. So, contrary to that, this is where your communication intangibles come in. But people people during an in-game scenario when you're trying to hunt get very overzealous, and somebody will make a call and you'll see the person who was just attacking you try and run and cut you off. It's important that you can rely, like if you have a team full of people who communicate really well and understand, all right, I don't have to be the one to run and like head people off all the time. That will cut down on the amount of bullshittery that somebody tries to play on you as a player. So I had a few players. Like I said, I think Scythe is up there with one of the most cerebral kind of players. I think his game awareness is way at the top.
It's pretty good, yeah.
Baden is another one. Leech is someone else that I think has a really high understanding of has a high amount of these intangibles. His game awareness is massive. You guys got anyone that sort of jumps out at you?
I mean, there are lots of people. I mean, a lot of these things I was thinking about, like, okay, what did I most like about playing with my 2023 team? So I mean, all 5 of those players are at the top of my list for a lot of these things, because I think that's why we gelled so well and why we had this kind of intuitive understanding that if we just talked about something, like most of the conversations we had nothing to do with, the mechanical skill of playing the game. We all knew how to play, but like, how do we play together? How do we make ourselves better alongside each other? So, Slaughtermelon, Snuffles, Thunder, Kodama, Odin's Fist, I think are all top of the line players when it comes to that. I agree with the names that you've mentioned too. But for things like communication and awareness, this is why, like I've told Dan that I'm like, I would take you as a resupply on basically any team, because I know that you're going to take care of those things. And certainly the last Nats that we played in 2024, I think was indicative of that. Like, you just don't have to worry about some of those things on the back line. And there are a lot of things. I think a lot of what's involved in awareness gets rolled into, people refer to it as experience sometimes, but like, experience is one of those things that isn't necessarily accurate either. Or like, you try to take it easy on a player because you say that they're inexperienced. Well, after they've been playing for 8 years, they ain't experienced anymore. They're just bad. They just don't have awareness.
Maybe not bad. Just
yeah,
mediocre.
but saying that it's a lack of experience is not really accurate. It's a lack of awareness. Now, if you're doing things appropriately, like, that awareness will come with experience, but it's not automatic.
Yeah.
Because if you practice the same bad habits every week, they're going to become more ingrained.
Yeah.
If you start changing the way that you play, then you're going to see growth. Like, discomfort is necessary for growth in all areas of life.
Go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say, but trying to get someone to alter the way that they've been playing can also be challenging, because generally when it's like, if you have to have someone alter the way that they've been playing, and this is it's one of the, this is where we get into an MVP argument as well. If you have to alter the way that you're playing, in general, your play is going to suffer for a little while you are trying to basically create new habits.
Yeah.
And there is a certain amount of ego that a lot of us carry on a regular basis around this game. That one thing MVP does do from a purely mechanical perspective is it shows you when you're being bad. Like, it shows you when you are off of the standard that you think you should be on.
Yeah.
And so when you're trying to, maybe break a player of some bad habits, and you're having to force them into like, no, we need to change this, there's going to be a drop off in their play while they're trying to internalize those fixes. And you've got some people that like don't necessarily they don't want to see stonks go down.
It's true.
So
do you guys?
But one other like statistical measure that I would throw out there is not just MVP, but something else that I've looked at a lot more in the last few years is also hit differential.
Yeah, hit diff
Yeah.
massive.
In because that I think that's the closest we can get to capturing awareness.
Yeah.
In like a tangible way, so it's no
Well,
longer
if you're a
intangible.
3-hit, right? If you're a 3-hit and your hit diff sucks, like
Yeah.
really sucks, that means that scouts are generally sneaking up on you, or you know you're putting yourself in a position where maybe you got tunnel vision or whatever it is.
And there are certain thresholds you want to hit. Like as a 3-hit, if you're running over 1, most of the time you're doing fine.
Yeah.
Even if you're a little bit under 1, but you are filling out the stat sheet in other ways, that's probably fine. But yeah, if you're at like 0.6 or 0.7 game after game after game, it's probably because your positioning sucks and your awareness is not good and you're giving up way too many easy hits that you should not be giving up.
Do you guys think?
Not all. I don't think. No.
Do you guys think that awareness is coachable?
To an extent, yes.
Yeah, I know that it is because it came up during the random draw. Is that I felt that we'd made kind of a mistake collectively as a team at the end of one game.
Yeah.
I explained it to a couple of players, and then when that situation came up again, we didn't make the same mistake.
Awesome.
So,
do you think awareness or these other intangibles are coachable for every player?
To an extent, I think that every player is always going to have a ceiling somewhere.
Right.
And every player's ceiling within each of these is going to be different. You know, I think that's the best way to put that. Not everyone is going to get to the same level of arena / spatial awareness as everyone else, and I mean that's okay. I mean that's life. Like you don't have.
If we look at talent as like the last intangible, it's like and it's in all areas of life. Some people just have more talent than others when it comes to activities, and there can be people that no matter how hard you work, you're not going to be as good as the best person, but you can still be better than you were, and you can still like make improvements. So I think that's really where the conversation is. Can everybody be coached according to these intangibles? Yes, up to a point, like Fan said. Can you be coached to be better than Rusty? I don't know that you can.
Interesting. I go with maybe the negative here a little bit and say that some people's personality types will preclude them from being coachable, or
sometimes.
Maybe not necessarily personality types. Maybe it's just a matter of like brain function or whatever. Like I think some people maybe don't have maybe a better way of saying that is longevity probably goes hand in hand with some of this stuff. Like if you're coachable, which maybe is another intangible, to be fair.
You kind of roll that into attitude, effort, all that kind of stuff. I think it touches in that general area.
Yeah.
But that gets. I mean that Steve, like that comes back to like everybody's ceiling is different.
True. That's true.
With that, like and yeah, some people's ceilings are. Some people's ceilings are going to be 6-foot tiny house ceilings. Like that's just the way it is.
I feel like
some people's ceilings are going to be big vaulted 20-foot ceilings. Like that's again that's just how it is.
And sometimes people plateau for a while and then they make another big leap. Or sometimes they reach a plateau and that's about as far as they get. So I've seen it happen.
Yeah. I feel like my ceiling is lagging. I've got a leak somewhere and it's starting to cave in.
Yeah. It's funny how that works.
All right. Well, that's a pretty good place to maybe leave things, unless you guys want to like finish with any final thoughts.
I mean, the only thing I would say is that some of the other things that I was going to talk about like knowing what the game situation is and the match situation, and Than and I have talked about this many, many times, that if we're going in the second game of a match and Than says we need to protect the match.
Yep.
I instantly know what he means.
Yeah.
I know exactly those alterations to make. But again, it's one of those things that I was like, on a random draw team, if I say that, I don't have the same history with the rest of these players that I have with a Than or an Odin's Fist or a Kodama or somebody like that, where they might immediately pick that up. So that's partly what I talk about in the video, is like understanding based on what the game situation is, how you make certain evaluations. So you can watch the VOD for that. But...
Yeah, that'll go up this week. I'll probably try and upload this episode first and then that, but we'll see. We'll see what I get around to doing today.
It's probably better as a follow-up to this, honestly.
Yeah, right. It's intangibles is something that has always fascinated me in our game, but most kind of sports or games. But yeah, our game, we've got certain things that we can relate to as players, and we kind of understand the things that we're looking for in a teammate or in a captain. And you know, we've each got like our own kind of list and the players that we would attribute those intangibles to. Make sure you if you feel the need, tell some people. Tell some people that what you like about their game, or maybe if you're newish or you're wanting to learn, ask those people how they think you could benefit from what they do, or you know, treat it as a coachable moment. But yeah, I love talking about this shit. Well, I've been doing it for a couple of hours. Right, coming up. I'm pretty sure we've got a show next week. We'll keep you guys posted.
I may or may not be here, but...
Oh, yeah, you got stuff.
But there may be a show of some kind.
There's a disc golf... The New Zealand Disc Golf Nationals is next week. It's in Christchurch, and I'm not playing. But, you know, if I
That's on a whole other island, right?
Yeah, yes, it is. If I manage to sweet talk my way into a spot in that tournament, though, maybe we don't do a show next week, but we'll let you know if that's the case.
So what I'm hearing is we're not having a show next week.
No, well, I haven't quite reached the level of being able to sweet talk everyone in the scene. But last week was definitely a move up the rungs. I'm very much at the bottom of the barrel at disc golf, so I'm moving my way up. We're trying to. My
Steve's
brother...
new side piece is hotter than us. He's leaving the old ball and chain at home.
Yeah, that's all I'm hearing.
Well, I was talking to Hoodlum, and he was like, "I'm coming out for the New Zealand Open next year." And I was like, "Hell yeah, let's do it."
Sweet.
What really sucks is he's become very, very good at disc golf, and it's, you know,
when that man puts his mind to stuff, he starts picking things up, and he's
good.
Knowing how cutthroat he is at games, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's fair.
I'm glad that it's kind of a pretty positive like community to be a part of. So any shit talking, you know, is probably going to be relatively positive. One big Germans tournament, exactly. Good luck, charm, Steve-O. That's how we roll them.
Hoodlum's one of the few people who can talk shit to me, and I actually enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
Oh, valid, 100% valid.
Other people, I'm like, fuck off. You don't get to talk to me like that.
Putty is just like, yeah, okay, whatever, bro.
Or like, I love you. Please keep talking to me.
Fuck you, get out of here.
Yeah.
You and your dulcet tones.
He'd be like, fuck you, Steve. I'm like, oh, yeah. I love it.
Your booze making me stronger.
All right. Well, look, for this week, I've been Intangible Guy Next Door.
I've been Slightly Tangible DK.
And I've been Leadership Fan.
Like it. Always remember to backtrack, kids, especially if it means you're going to trick someone into going the wrong way. We will see you next time. Ka kite anō. See you guys soon.